So, for our project, we're doing social media and its effects on anxiety. At the current moment, what we have done is we have an outline of a PowerPoint, Google Slides. We also both have analyzed and looked into the data set that we have, and eventually we can start actually getting percentages and numbers and analyzing. So, starting, this is our Google slide that we have at the moment. Basically, just a rough outline of what we're going to be talking about when, and just organizing when we're going to be speaking and about which topics. Eventually, we'll add a lot more slides in between the ones. Right now, these are more just like header slides that are going to be to go from one topic to another. And then, so for my personal notes and work, I've gone through the data set and basically found all the numbers and stuff that I find will be useful when it comes to actually setting up my portions of the presentation and what I'm going to want to actually say and present on. So my portion was supposed to be for age and gender. So I looked into the anxiety levels of people that are considered young in age, middle aged, and older age, as well as the amount of hours each demographic spends on social media. That way I can analyze and see if there are any effects when it comes to age and social media. Then I went with gender as well. So I looked up for men and women the amount of hours spent in total on social media, as well as anxiety levels, high, medium, and low. Again, I'm going to be able now further on to analyze those, find percentages and everything, and see if there is a distinguishing factors that cause the high anxiety levels. Basically, how I did that was just using the data set that we acquired. I just used the filter tool to filter out whatever I was looking for at the time. So, like if I was looking for, so if I was looking for a certain age category, I selected, say, older people, and then I was able to collect my information from here.
So as Nikki said, we are continuing to do our data analysis on the data set we found for the number of hours people spent on social media and how that affects their well-being. And my part of the project is to analyze how social media affects people in different habitats, so like rural, exurban, suburban, those areas, and education, and how it affects people based on the highest education they receive. And based on our statement of work, we are making pretty good progress so far. So we expect to uh, come to our conclusions so that we can be able to answer some of the research questions we provided last time. We expect to finish that within the next few days, so that eventually we can move on to creating the final presentation and adding the finishing touches and recording the video for the final deliverable. So because we're on progress, we haven't had to change our plan and our progress updates, and we haven't had to fall back on our backup plan. So that's been pretty good so far. And just to give you an idea of what we've been working on, I have a little snippet of some of the data analysis we've been conducting. This is using RStudio and the R language, which I learned about in CIS 331, which I believe is titled Data Analysis Tools and Techniques. And in that class, I learned how to use the Tidyverse library, which is an R, which makes data analysis a lot easier. And so I can just run you through some of the code right here. We have to first open up the data set, and then Tidyverse allows you to do different filtering and selecting and ordering for the data sets. So on the data set we have, I decided to only examine the people who live in urban municipal areas and reported a high amount of media consumption. And then from there, I wanted to examine their well-being categories and see the number of people who reported their well-being as high, middle, or low to see if there was any correlation between well-being and media consumption. And then I decided to graph it, which is what this part does right here, and then map it using a bar graph, which is the final result down here, and I can make that bigger. As you can see in the results, we have the people who reported having a high well-being in this one, low, and then middle. And then people who scored highest in the well-being category actually reported, or I'm sorry, was actually the smallest amount of people. And then low was second highest, and middle was the highest, and it only ranged from about 15 to 21. So there was really no correlation with this set of variables, but I've continued to explore different variables to reach more definitive conclusions about how media consumption affects different people. So I say that our project is on track and on schedule to be delivered on the timeline that we were given and the deadline that we were given. Thank you.